Welcome to Just Talk Funerals with me, Jason Threadgold.
And me, Nicola Threadgold.
Just Talk Funerals is all about the funeral industry, the people that work alongside us, and an insight into what we do.
We will have some special guests along the way, sharing their experiences and how their professions overlap with what we do.
So get yourselves comfy, grab yourselves a cuppa, and let's get into today's episode of
Just Talk Funerals.
Hi everyone, and welcome to our next episode. Today we have a guest with us today, so we've got Penny Pringle with us here today. So Penny, if you'd like to introduce yourselves and tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Penny Pringle. I'm the licensed lay minister, I think they call us, or reader, depending on which antiquated system you're working with, in the church at Burton-upon-Stather and that group. And I've been there for 15 years now, and I take services and I take funeral services.
Fabulous. We're going to bombard you with a few questions today about what you do. And I know you don't know what these questions are going to be yet, so we'll go through these one by one. So can you share a bit about your journey coming into the church, and was there a defining moment that led to you coming into the church?
There wasn't really a defining moment. I grew up way before you two did, in the East End of London, where everyone went to Sunday school still. So I was dragged along at the age of 3 to Sunday school and just carried on from that. I was in the Congregational Church at that time, which hardly exists now. It's been taken over and become United Reformed. So I started that and then gradually moved across into the Anglican Church because I was doing music for A-level. And we had to do some singing, choral singing, which obviously free churches don't have in quite the same way, or they didn't down where we were. So I got involved that way and gradually sort of found I was moving towards wanting to be further involved.
Okay. So when you moved into the area which is now Burton-upon-Stather, how did you get directly involved with the church there? What drew you to that particular church?
I'd been a reader, as I say, or a licensed lay minister down on Canvey Island where I was before we moved up here. I'd been there for 22 years with an active role. We moved up here when husband retired, and I sat there the first 6 months in church with my mouth shut, believe it or not, and didn't say anything to anybody about what I could do. And then things happened. The vicar there wasn't particularly well, and so I just went and I said, look, I am a licensed lay reader. Can I help you out at all? And the rest, as they say, is history. Okay,
and you're seen as the person in that area now, and you cover so many different parishes as well. You've got an awful lot going on.
Yeah. Well, Alison retired, so I've now got 5 parishes that I work with. And yes, I am the person to go to, because if you've got 5 churches, you've got to have someone who's coordinating it. So I'm basically the coordinator. But when it comes to funerals, I'm the only one who can do them for those 5 parishes.
Okay. And because it's within a Church of England setting, you tend to take the majority of Christian services, but you'll also, if somebody asks you, sort of lean back a little bit on the religion, and you may officiate over what we class as a celebrant style service. How do you find taking a celebrant style service in as opposed to taking a Christian service because of your Christian beliefs?
I don't think, well, there is a difference, obviously, because you don't Bible bash, not that we do that anyway with a Christian service, but I don't find there's a lot of difference. It's the way you relate with the family, and you're putting for either service, you're putting across what they want. It's their service for their family member, and if they don't want all the prayers that we could put in, why should they have them?
No.
You find a way around it, put something else in. I love using poems more than Bible readings, because a poem actually has a point to it, whereas the Bible reading has one line in a huge, great big chunk that's actually relevant. That said, I mean, I will do the strict Church of England service, and I will try and do a complete celebrant service, because I think it's how you're putting yourself alongside. You're showing that as a person you can care.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
No, that's great. So, next question. What has it been like being a female in the church, And have you faced any particular challenges or unexpected blessings?
As a female, it has been interesting because traditionally it's a male. And I've got nothing against the males, but there are good males and there are bad males. There are good females and bad females. Getting yourself established to start with, I think, is a little harder as a lady. But no, I've not really had too many problems. There's been a couple of occasions when we want a man to do it. Okay, fine. And I just step back and let them get on with it and organise it themselves. But
Okay. Any highlights or sort of the blessing side of things? Is there anything come from that?
I think, not that I like doing them particularly, I don't think any officiant likes doing them. Doing a baby's service as a woman, that is, it's so moving because you relate to your own family. I related to my babies when I was looking at this tiny little coffin, and because you're relating to it, you're relating to the family in a way that they don't expect.
Yeah, I think
that was a really fantastic feeling. The couple I've done with young children.
Yeah, I think ladies in the church taking service like that, you can be a lot more empathetic.
Yeah.
And you can sort of make that similarity, can't you? So that. Okay. How do you personally find strength and peace in your role, especially when you're supporting others through loss?
This came about, I think, when I did both my parents' funerals. My dad died after a very long illness, and the minister from the church they attended came round and obviously didn't know who my father was, let alone anything about him, although he'd been there for 15 years with him. And as he left, I said, I'm going to do that because I can do it better. And then came home and the panic struck. I went to my vicar and I said, what do I do? I can't do this. And he said, listen, honey, it's the last thing you can do for him. You know him the best, you can do it, and you'll give your best. He said, and that's the way you should look at all funerals. You'll give your best. And if you've done your preparation, you'll be fine. And that's how I've worked from then on. And that's sort of 25 years ago that advice came.
Okay, well done.
So,
yeah, that is definitely good advice, definitely. Okay, so let's talk about funerals a bit, and when you are officiating, what do you think makes a meaningful funeral service?
basically, I think it's celebrating the person's life. I know that's not the traditional way that you should look at it because you've got these liturgies laid down, but people want to hear the good things about the person they've lost. Yes, you can throw in the occasional little funny story or whatever, which is possibly not so good, but they want to hear that their person that you're talking about is valued.
Yeah.
And that you've made the effort to find out a little bit about them. If I'm being, in inverted commas, paid, because church-wise you don't get paid that much, but if I'm being paid to take a service, I owe it to that family to actually offer them the service, not just to turn up and say, right, well, you do the eulogy and I'll do this. Yeah. You're giving them the hard bit to do. You need to do it so, let's say you're in control, but you've got time-wise, you're on a schedule, you are in control, and because you're in control, you are in control in a different sense.
Yeah.
You know what's going on, you know what you've got to get done, and you know what the parameters are, and I think that's the main thing. I think I've forgotten what the question was.
No, I think you've answered that definitely. And I know you alluded to this earlier with your own father's passing and the fact that you took the service, but how do you make a service so personal to a family when you've not known the deceased?
By talking with them. I know people who go and they'll do a funeral visit and they'll be out within half an hour. I'm usually still there after 2 hours. And you see a photograph, you say, when was that? And what was that? Just talking about them, picking out things that you can find out about the person's life and trying to make it real.
Yeah.
I don't say bring them back to life, but you know what I mean? It's making them they're part of this service. They're not just that coffin that's on the catafalque. They are part of it. They are the main person that you're there for. And just making it as personal as you can.
I always think, and it's like when the funeral director goes to meet a family, and I'm sure it's the same when, the officiant does as well. Sometimes you don't know these people. So first of all, you've got to sort of have a bit of a relationship and build a relationship with them yourself. But then for them to maybe talk about some personal things, and like you say, for you to be able to draw out that information to get to know the person who's passed away.
Yeah, bearing in mind at the moment I'm working in villages.
Yeah.
If you know one person in the village, you have a touching point with most of them.
Yeah.
But quite often you'll find you do one for one family, and then you're recommended to do it for another family, and you get to know the families and the links between them. And I can find out more information by talking to a neighbour or whatever than I do just by talking to the family. Yeah. And if you make the effort to find out something that they don't think you know, as long as it's a positive, they're over the moon.
Yeah.
And oh, I didn't know you knew that.
Yeah.
Well, how did you know you played cricket for so and so?
Yeah.
Because I asked.
Yeah. I guess that's the beauty of communities, isn't it?
It is. It's a lovely village. Communities are lovely to work in.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent.
Just don't say anything anti anybody because they're all related somehow down the line.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, so what role do rituals and traditions play in helping families grieve, would you say?
Traditions have been handed down not only in society, but they're handed down in the family. We always do this. So, the traditions are important, but traditions have changed. They've moved on even the time I'm doing. It has gone more towards celebrating the person's life rather than mourning their death, which is also a part of it, but, it's a slight turn.
Yeah.
So the rituals, I'm a bit of a rebel, and yes, I have got the ritual services laid down, but if I don't think bits suit, I don't use.
No.
I try to tailor what I do to suit the family.
And I think that's really important, isn't it, Penny? Because, times are a-changing. I think anybody in any industry, never mind just the funeral industry, we have to go with the change, don't we? It's not for us to say, well, we're not doing that. It's what families want. It's important that we give them, exactly what the wishes are.
I mean, also, the number of families you deal with now, even though they want to come into church for their service, that's the first time we've seen them for 20, 30 years since we did parents' funeral or whatever. They are not church families on the whole.
No.
So therefore, they've got the trauma of actually stepping into the building, and it can be a trauma if you've not been in a church for a service for ages. And you've got to make it as welcoming on their level as it is on your level. At least that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about faith. And, in your experience, how does faith help people cope with bereavement and with grieving?
If you're working with a family who's got faith, it's easy because they've grown up with the same teachings that you've grown up with.
Yeah.
If they haven't got faith, sometimes it makes it, why does your God allow this to happen?
Yeah.
When it's someone who's died in a very uncomfortable death. You just have to say, basically, I don't know what's beyond there. I know what I'd like to think is beyond there, and that's what keeps me going. I can't make you suddenly develop this deep faith in something that you don't know. All I can say is that I have found from working with people that if they think that we care, as the church community care, we're there for you. We will help you not only on the lead up, on the day, but we will be there after as well. You're just living what you believe, living it in your life and showing it to others. That's the way I try to work it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Back to me, Penny. So how do you view the relationship between the clergy and funeral directors, and what makes for a good working partnership?
How do I view it? In the majority of cases, it is a partnership. The funeral director needs someone to take the service, and the person taking the service needs someone to have organised all the logistics of it all. So it is a partnership. We are working together to try to give the family a good send-off for their loved one.
Okay. And with that in mind then, have you, as part of a funeral, ever had a moving or memorable element of that service that was conducted alongside a funeral director, something that stands out to you?
Again, I think it was one I did for a baby. The person who organised it told me I was the one to do this because I would do what the family wanted me to do. And what the family wanted was for us all to turn up in pink. And those who know me know I never wear bright pink, but we all turned up in pink. And we were all sitting in the creme, sitting on the steps with this tiny little coffin on a small table, lighting night lights and telling stories that the baby and the younger children in the family would relate to. And I think that it didn't reduce me to tears at the time, but it did when they'd gone.
Yeah.
Because it was just such a embracing thing. And the family, the young family who'd lost their much longed for baby, they said, you couldn't have done it better if we tried. And I said, but it wasn't me on my own. It was me working in conjunction with the funeral directors. And I think actually the said funeral director would have been horrified if they'd known exactly how he was dressed for that particular part of the service.
Okay. How do you think funeral directors can better support the clergy, or vice versa, when you're acting as we're going to call you the vicar?
Okay. I think it's just being there so we can have conversations. Quite often, quite rightly, on the funeral director's first contact, they try to get as much information about what's going to be in the service. And you need to be able to be flexible and change things, because a week down the line or whatever, when I meet them, they've changed their mind. They don't want that XYZ piece of music.
Yeah.
They want this instead. And it's knowing that we can change and work together and actually produce something that we've done together. And we look as if we're working together. Not that, oh no, I'm standing outside the creme and or outside the church and you turn up and we just look at each other and get on with it. We have a conversation. We show that we're human. We've got a relationship. And I think that is very, very important.
It's teamwork, regardless.
Yeah,
I think,
that's the word I'm looking for. It is
you've
teamwork.
got to work as a team, otherwise you're not going to get to the end result, and it is going to look fractured. Isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's not fractured because, it might be in some cases. Well, not my case. I know I've worked with you or with whoever it is. We work together, we plan together, we do the whole procedure together, and that's where it all comes. And I need to know what you're going to do at various points in the service, like when you bring the coffin in, how we're going to manage it. When you take the coffin out, how we're going to manage it if it's a church service. And different directors do it differently. It's just knowing how you're going to work with different people.
The last thing you don't want it looking disjointed, really, do you?
No, it's got to flow.
Yeah. Very good.
Okay, Penny, so over the last 15 years, I mean, that's a long time, isn't it? Have you noticed how the way people approach funerals and the grief, how it's changed over recent years?
Well, actually, I'll put you a little bit right there. It's 35 years I've
Sorry,
been doing
35.
funerals.
My goodness
But,
me,
yeah.
that is a long time.
But yes, it has changed a bit in that people, when you meet them, they used to be a lot more wailing and gnashing of teeth and whatever. Now they seem to treat it more as one of life's processes they've got to go through. They don't, because I'm not a proper vicar in inverted commas, they don't expect me to throw church at them and tell them they've got to do this, that and the other. If you tell a family that you're going to remember their loved one in the prayers on the next Sunday service, they're, really?
Yeah.
Can we come along? Well, of course you can. The church is there for you whenever. But you don't have to. We will be remembering them anyway. We'd love to see you, but, it has changed in that people accept now that the funeral service is to think of the positives of a person's life and not just churn out the service as it's in the prayer book or whatever.
Yeah.
Which has its place, but not all the time nowadays.
Yeah. I think that shows as well. And again, it's change, isn't it? Where you know, people wear bright colours where they always used to wear black. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
some funerals still are black attire, aren't they? But, you know, a lot of them now, people wear other colours, won't they?
Yep.
You know, and that's again about the celebration of that person, isn't it?
Well, say if you ever get to do mine, everyone's got to be in red.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why.
Yeah.
Well, that's my big question for later then.
Yeah. Do you think, Penny, more families are looking for less traditional services nowadays? And how do you balance that with the spiritual aspects of a church-led funeral?
If it's a church-led funeral, the one thing I do insist in having there is the Lord's Prayer,
Yeah.
which, you know, is optional for creme services to a
Yeah.
certain extent. Though if they've asked for a Church of England service, I think that prayers and the Lord's Prayer are to a certain extent a given.
Yeah.
They're more than happy to have a few prayers. What they don't want is people sort of preaching at them. That at that particular point in time, they don't want the traditional way of talking about the life after death and all that kind of thing, because no one can prove that. You know, how do you know that that's going to happen? I don't.
Yeah.
I have stories I can tell whereby it might be the case.
Yeah.
There's indications, but I can't prove it. And I think it's meeting the family where they are and trying to take them church-wise, trying to show that the church is a wider body, does care, but also that they're the important part of it all.
Yeah, definitely.
Without them coming and asking for a church service, I wouldn't have to think about it.
Yeah, okay. And what role do churches and vicars play, do you think, or still play in modern communities when it comes to end-of-life care?
That's a difficult one because quite often you don't know there is an end of life.
Yeah.
You
guess-
know the people that come
Yeah.
to church when they're like to be on end
Yeah.
of life. I think it's a case of, again, it's letting them know you're there. If they want you to come in and interfere, so to speak, with the end of life by being there, they'll ask.
Yeah.
I offer. I say, if you want me to come round, say a few prayers or whatever,
Yeah.
I will do so. But quite often that families nowadays seem to want to spend that time just them
Yeah, together.
together, and it's after the point of death that they want to find someone who's going to steer them in the next bit.
Yeah.
Whether that's the funeral director, whether it's the church minister, which it could be, and if it's a church family,
Yeah.
whoever that turns out to be, I think it's important that that person is there.
Yeah.
And again, once we both get on together on it, you've had that conversation. Well, I went round then, so that they know, you know what we've done, I know what you've done, and we can work together on it to show that we all care.
Yeah.
We are working together to make this awful experience the best it can possibly be.
So that leads us nicely into my next question.
dear.
And what do you think people are actually looking for when they come to a funeral service?
I don't think a lot of people are looking for anything. They're coming to support the family who are left. I mean, we've got one that we're going to on Wednesday. We don't really know the family at all, but we know the guy who died. So we will go to support the family because we knew him.
Yeah.
And we've got stories we could tell if they hadn't heard them already. I think they're looking to possibly learn something about the person that they didn't know before, to see who that person's family were if they don't know them, which with families spread and far and wide around the country, you don't necessarily know all the family. In fact, it's quite strange. I did one not that long ago where family turned up and I hadn't realised I knew. I was at school with one of them who've come up from Essex. So, you know, it's one of those things.
Small world, isn't it?
It is a small world, uncomfortably small at some occasions.
I think, though, like when we've been to funerals, though, I mean, I don't think there's many times where you don't speak to people afterwards and they say, well, I didn't know that about that person. You know, you learn so much about a person.
Well, again, the person who trained me said, after the service, if everyone goes away having learnt nothing about that person, you haven't done your job.
That's interesting.
which I thought.
So, for you, do you have any favourite readings, prayers, or hymns that you feel always bring comfort?
I think there's two poems that I really love. I love them, you know, you can shed tears that he's gone, you can smile because he's lived, or whatever. I love that poem because it makes you actually, if you're coming in miserable, it makes you turn around and you look at the positives of it all. And I love the other one I love is the fear no guilt in laughter, they know how much you care. Because death of the person, yes, they're not here physically anymore, but it's not death because they're still there in you. And I think it's important that that's highlighted for them. So that's why I love that poem.
Yeah, and I guess you need to celebrate people as well, don't you? You
Yeah.
need to think of them good times. And I feel no guilt in laughter when you start talking about people in the past tense as well.
Exactly.
Why would you not?
Why would you not? But they need to be given permission to feel that. And I think that's why I like reading that poem. And like I say, if it's a committal after ashes or committal at the end of a burial service, I always use the "do not stand at my grave and weep."
Yeah.
I am not there. I do not sleep. You can put emphasis on it in such a way that make them feel.
Well, it resonates with the reason for you being there and what you're actually doing, doesn't it? The words within that poem are actually physically about what you're doing there and then.
Yeah. I am 1,000 winds that blow.
Indeed,
I'm around
indeed.
you the whole time.
We've had 1,000 winds blowing many a time. on this
Exactly.
gathering, haven't we?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I am the tears on autumn rain, so why is it chucking it down today?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at just sort of closing and reflection now, Penny. So what's the most rewarding part of your role in supporting people at the end of their life?
I just think it's being alongside them at what for them is the worst time, or could be the worst time they're ever going to go through.
Yeah.
If it's handled correctly, they bounce back very quickly.
Yeah.
They'll have down days, of course they will. But if you handle the family correctly, you're there for them when they need it, you'll answer their questions, you'll work with them, then they will come back to normal quicker.
Yeah.
And I think that it's the most rewarding part is knowing that you've been alongside them.
Yeah.
And that something that you've said, whatever it might be, more often than not, you're not aware of what you've said that might have triggered it, but something that you have said has helped them.
Yeah. And I think, we often talk about care and support, don't we? And it's not just about at the time when somebody's lost somebody, it's afterwards, it's probably when they probably need you a little bit more, isn't it? When sort of the world gets back to normal, isn't it?
Yeah, the first of the birthdays that they miss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the wedding anniversary, or
yeah, definitely.
the thing that they've been. We wanted to get to our golden wedding. We've missed it by 6 months.
Yeah.
It's making sure you make contact with them on that day.
Yeah. And what's one piece of wisdom or comfort that you often find yourself sharing with grieving families?
Basically, that we've all been through it. I mean, I can talk about my parents.
Yeah.
And with a baby, I lost a baby, so I know what that was like. Okay, it was a miscarriage rather than an actual baby, but it's the same process you go through. I think it's just giving them permission to acknowledge that everyone goes through it, and they're not on their own.
Yeah.
Their next door neighbours had it, you've had it, they've had it. Person that they don't speak to 3 miles down the road's had it, sort of thing. It's just it is a rite of passage that's got to be got through.
Yeah.
And we can try and do it as easily, as friendly, whatever as possible.
Yeah, okay. And if you could change one thing, Penny, about us as a society and how we deal with grief, is there anything that you could say?
I think it is the fact that, things have moved more towards we're celebrating the life. I think we have to think of the positives, that person did live. They had a good life, or they had a life anyway. They've done this, they've done that, they've done the other. It's not all miserable. Grief shouldn't be all miserable. There are positive sides to grief.
Yeah.
And if times get really difficult, try and think of something positive that person had.
Yeah, okay. So, last question, finally. What gives you hope, Penny?
What gives me hope? Again, it's the fact that going back to my father, I was with him a few hours before he died. And he was reaching out and saying to somebody, some presence, I'm coming, I'll be with you soon, I'm coming.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, well, that proves to me there's something beyond this life.
Yeah.
And that gives me hope, which means that I can then go on and I can do a few more services and hope that someone says something positive to me at some point, or about me at some point.
Okay. I think that's a lovely way to finish, don't you?
Yeah, amazing. Penny, thank you ever so much for coming along today.
Thank you.
Really
thank
appreciate your
you.
time.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd say it's a pleasure, but sometimes these things are not a pleasure, but it has been a pleasure. Thank you very much for asking me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Just Talk Funerals.
We really care about what you think. We'd love your feedback on the subjects raised today, or maybe you have a question you would like us to talk about in a future episode. You can contact us by emailing podcast@threadgoldfunerals.com.
If you'd like to know more about what we do and the services we offer, then please head to jasonthreadgoldfuneraldirector.com. Thank you for joining us today, and see you next time.